If we talk about Hillary and her sweet husband Bill, these people are super, super, super criminals. I mean, on a scale that is it's mind-boggling, I tell you. And there's a whole long list of body counts of dead bodies following in their trail, to the position where they are today.
Ole,
Sean,
how are you?
I'm good. And you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm good, man. What time is it there?
It is 5:30 p.m.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, so you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and ready to go. And here it's 10:30 in the morning, and I have a cup of coffee, so I'm in okay shape as well. Well, let me just dive right in. Ole Dammegard has been a truth teller and a truth researcher for 30 years. He's dedicated his life to uncovering the conspiracies behind the global government, the shadow government, the evil that has gripped this world. His website, lightonconspiracies.com, is a must-read for anyone who wants to know the truth about the powers that control humanity. And his books are now available on Amazon, Coup d'etat in Slow Motion, Volumes 1 and 2, and So What Can I Do, Volume 1. It is my distinct honor to welcome to the show, Ole Dammegard.
Hi, Sean. Thank you so much for this kind introduction.
Well, it is my pleasure to have you. I've been following your work for so very long, listening to your interviews on Red Ice Radio and others, and I just wanted to play something for you right now, actually just to set the stage for the audience, who most of whom I would assume are familiar with you, but for those who aren't, guys, Ole truly is a preeminent truth teller and researcher who's uncovered the truth about the Nice, France false flag, the Charlie Hebdo false flag, the Anders Breivik attacks on the youth camp in Norway back in 2011. Of course, Anders was also blamed for the bombing in Oslo hours before, killing 7. The attack on the island killed 85. No one has dug deeper into these conspiracies and these false flags than Ole, and he's paid the price for it. Listen to this from the 2015 Open Mind Reality Talk Conference. This is Ole.
I've received death threats. I've been almost arrested in several countries. I've been checked up by the Delta team in Norway, almost escorted out of the country and stuff. And the only thing I've done, I do not step on ants, I don't kick dogs. I try to treat my family and friends with deep respect and love. The only thing I've done is follow truth. And today, that is an act of terrorism.
Ole, our audience is well aware of the fact that the apparatus has been turned around on the people, especially in our nation after 9/11. You know, with the Patriot Act, the Department of Homeland Security itself, the apparatus has been turned around on the people of this country, but I think you'd agree that the apparatus has been turned around against the people all over the world.
I don't know about all over the world, but for sure in many countries in the Western European countries, and I mean, you've been hijacked big time. So it's a sad state that we just need to.
Well, let me ask you this. Of course, our conversation could be so wide-reaching that we could talk for 3 or 4 hours, and we could go into all of these different false flags that you've researched and uncovered the truth about. When we talk conspiracy, there is no better example of it front-facing right now in our country, in this nation, than the Clinton DNC machine, which Project Veritas and WikiLeaks has exposed as one giant conspiracy against the people. And you have the Democrats' leaked Podesta emails themselves saying they want their constituency to be unaware so they'll remain compliant. In their own words. So there is a conspiracy to keep the people dumbed down in this nation and across the world, isn't there?
Yeah, big time. Big time. I mean, you're just scratching on the surface. I mean, if we talk about Hillary and her sweet husband Bill, these people are super, super, super criminals. I mean, on a scale that is it's mind-boggling, I tell you. And there's a whole long list of body counts of dead bodies following in their trail, to the position where they are today. They came, Bill was the governor of Arkansas, where in that state there was a small little airfield called Mina, a little town with an airfield, and that airfield became very crucial in the whole so-called Iran-Contra scandal, where weapons were stolen from the National Guard, flown out in big C-130 planes. I'm a personal friend of one of the pilots. Flew them down to the Contras army in Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, these countries, and then pumping these planes full with cocaine, in tons of cocaine, coming back in the nose cone and in coolers and so on inside these massive big planes, and landing in Mena, Arkansas. You know, it's only an airstrip. There's not even a flight tower or anything. And the people who personally were there, sometimes receiving these drugs, were a man called Dan Lasseter and his fellow in crime, Bill Clinton. And sometimes also George Bush Sr. was there personally receiving these drugs and then starting to distribute them, creating the whole crack epidemic in the US. Total inside job. And that whole thing, I mean, he was quite young, Bill Clinton, at that time, before he was invited into the Bilderberg meeting where he was selected as the next president. I mean, there was absolutely no election or anything going on that looked anything like democracy. These people are selected, put in position as a new, nice cover of this very brutal death machine that is in action here, that has been in action ever since, well, before the JFK assassination as well. But that was a major takeover that day on the 22nd of November 63. That was, I would call it, a coup d'etat that took place there, not only on the US, but on the Western world, where the forces behind that assassination, I mean, there was a major reason why they took him out. And the people, the power structure that killed him that day, slaughtered him, are still in place. This is why these things are so important to expose. So it's so much more than just a crime that took place some 50 years ago. These people are still active, many of them, old guys and their families and sons and daughters. I mean, women also involved, if you can call Hillary a woman. And so very, very brutal forces and extremely criminal people. So this whole thing about an election, I mean, I don't even follow it. I mean, it's a total waste of time in my point of view, totally rigged. And whatever happens, it's just going to be a total disaster. It's just going to continue until we transcend this whole thing and take the power back.
You know, so many of the things you just said are resonating with me in powerful ways. I have so much to say that I tend to go on rants, so I'm going to try to stay focused here. I'm well aware of the Mena, Arkansas drug running, and I've been saying forever that it is the Bushes that created the Clintons. The Clintons could have never risen to power. Small state governor with no background, no history, no publicity. Clinton, he rises to power. It's because he was allowing the drugs to be run through Mena, Arkansas, and became a made man. He became an approved made man of the Bush cartel, essentially. And, I actually didn't know that Bush Sr. ever had boots on the ground there, which you just revealed there, but I am well aware of Bush Sr. being the head of the CIA and the drug running. And the drug running, here's the thing. It makes me so angry, Ole, because just this past weekend in a suburb just less than 20 miles from where I live, 6 people were hospitalized for heroin overdose, 2 of which died. This heroin epidemic in this country is off the charts, and they're bringing the heroin in from Afghanistan, where poppy production is now at an all-time high, and it appears to be hitting a new record high for this year. The same powers that have been behind the destruction of this nation are allowing the heroin now to come in and become an epidemic across this country. And I guess the point here is that the Bushes and the Clintons are part of the same cartel. WikiLeaks, Project Veritas. The truth is out, and yet the CIA criminal Mockingbird mainstream media continues to cover it up, Ole, but I don't know that they can cover it up for very much longer because they only have so many fingers to put in the holes in the dam, and the water is pouring through.
I think there's a slight mistake when you say allowing the drug imports. It's not a matter of allowing, they're doing it. They are the drug barons, they are the one doing it. And this is the reason for these wars in Afghanistan. I mean, there's a reason. If you go to Afghanistan, I've been there, it's a desert. There's nothing there except drugs. It is the place for drugs, And many of these places where you so kindly go and bomb the shit out of innocent people and everything, it's a matter of drugs, oil, uh, position, strategic positions for this trafficking to go in and out. And I mean, the whole Vietnam War was built on drugs. It was from the Gold Triangle, and the whole thing. Many of tons of drugs were brought back inside dead bodies, inside the bodies of dead soldiers that they just cut up, filled with drugs, and put them together, put a nice flag on top of the coffin, and brought them back with Air America and this whole thing. It is disgusting. It is disgusting. And I just want to mention also this Bush family. When we talk about Granddad Bush, Prescott Bush, major financer. He was one of the people that funneled the funds to Adolf Hitler's war machine. He was also, his dad was part of forging the so-called Zimmerman telegram that got the US involved in the First World War. Then Prescott Bush, Granddad Bush, was the one that was part of funding, not personally, but bringing the funds into the Nazi war machine, getting the whole Second World War going, together with the Dulles brothers and so on. They were in the backgrounds playing the whole thing, being key players, not the real brains behind it. And then in the early 60s, when Fidel Castro was becoming a major problem, a very ultra-secret hit team called Operation 40 was created by mostly exiled Cubans, but it was headed by people in the CIA, such as Ted Shackley, the blonde ghost, David Atlee Phillips, the controller of Lee Harvey Oswald, the controller of James Files, the shooter on the grassy knoll, and also the controller of some of the people involved in the assassination of Swedish Olof Palme, also involved in or controlling people taking part of this overtake of the Salvador Allende regime in Chile, many of these Latin Americans, and very, very strategic in Operation Phoenix, the mass extinction, mass murder program in Vietnam, killing more than 20 Vietnamese people and so on. Very nice people, not. Anyway, this hit team called Operation 40 was a team put together with skilled assassins so that they could be used anywhere in the world as soon as the people in power would have a problem anywhere. If it was companies like Standard Oil or United Fruit or something like that, if they had a problem with a president in some country, Banana Republic or whatever, they could just bring these people in, kill him, put their own person in position, and so on. That was the whole idea. And the paymaster for this thing in the early 60s, this group was super central in the JFK assassination, super central. Many of the shooters came directly from Operation 40. They were central in the Robert Kennedy assassination. They had people part of the Martin Luther King assassination. It goes on and on and on for many, many years. Some of them are still active. But the paymaster was George Bush Sr., as a young man, CIA operative. And George Bush Jr. it seems like he was also in Dealey Plaza, just watching the slaughter of JFK. George Bush, I mean, I'm not talking about Jeb or Boy George, as I call him, the second president. He's a joke. But he's just like a player in the front, saying stupid things, but keeping the senior working in the background, because George Bush Sr. is one of the major players on a very high level in this so-called New World Order. And the level of criminality that man has been involved in is staggering. And I'm a personal friend of Chip Tatum, he was the commander of George Bush Sr.'s private hit team called Pegasus. They carried out 17 assassinations in Western Europe. He was a Night Stalker pilot. He was one of the pilots in the Iran-Contra scandal, flying weapons out, drugs in, not even being aware of it. And he said, because I asked him, when you look into the eyes of George Bush Sr., I mean, when you look at the actions, we're talking about a monster, but he looks so nice, and he speaks with a pleasant voice, and it's always been a mystery to me. And he said George Bush Sr. is one of the most intelligent people he's ever met, and by far the most evil. And that says a lot because Chip has been his whole adult life and his whole career has been surrounded by assassins, soldiers of fortune, mercenaries, and so on. And then to say that, that is heavy duty, I think.
Well, it's extremely powerful, and I've wondered the same thing, my friend. I've thought the same thing about Evelyn Rothschild and Jacob Rothschild, and these people, when you see them in their PR opportunities, whether it's on the BBC or otherwise, or these documentaries that are made, they sound like soft-spoken, generous people, and they are exactly the opposite. And the thing I've been trying to drive home, the point I've been trying to make for anyone who will listen in this election is that Hillary Clinton is Rothschild's puppet. We already know from WikiLeaks that she has Soros connections, but we know the public-facing apparatus here. We've got Lady Rothschild stumping for Hillary, saying she is the candidate that will be good for business. She's their choice. $100,000 fundraisers held for Hillary by the Rothschilds. But just circling back to the Bush family, we're well aware of Prescott Bush and his criminality and the fact that he tried to commit a coup, a fascist coup of the U.S. government in the 30s, trying to get General Smedley Butler to play his role with his Wall Street buddies to commit a coup of the U.S. government. And Smedley Butler then blew the whistle, spent the rest of his life talking about the fact that war is a racket. So the evil of the Bush crime family just cannot be overstated. And you mentioned hit team Operation 40 and Pegasus, which is Bush's private hit team. Ollie, I'm firmly of the belief that there are hit teams certainly running around probably in this country now, because if we look at just the recent additions to the Clinton death list, we see John O'Shea from the United Nations, who apparently dropped a barbell on his neck right before he was supposed to testify against Clinton, Seth Rich, a Democratic operative, Joe Montano, Victor Thorne, the researcher, and Sean Lucas, who served the DNC with papers for their corruption. All of these men dead before their time, and the mainstream media just ignores it. So I'm firmly of the belief that these hit teams are operating in our nation today. And then, of course, I should mention Scalia. We've got WikiLeaks emails saying from Podesta using the word wet works right around the time of the death of Scalia. So would it be a surprise to any thinking person that those of us who are informed might wonder if Scalia was also assassinated by these people? So your thoughts on any of that? Because I think there's hit teams operating in this nation and worldwide right now, and it's very scary.
Yeah, what else is new? I mean, they have never stopped. It's just that it's becoming more and more apparent. I think we're at a time in history where the fog is starting to lift, where normal people are starting to become aware of, wait a second, there's something weird going on, even though they've been so asleep. I'm sometimes wonder how brain dead we need to, or how brain dead we've been to allow what has been going on. Because once you start seeing it, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. But it's just, and if we just did a wordplay, and instead of saying George Bush, we said Al Capone, then nobody would be surprised. Right. So Al Capone had an enemy. He just got rid of him. He just killed him. He just did that. They just mass murdered them. They had a mass shooting over there. No, nobody would be surprised because it's the mafia. Well, it is the mafia, but here we're being told it's the freedom thing. It's the White House. It should be called the Satanic House. That is what's going on there. And it's like they change these words. They speak about freedom. We're going to go and liberate countries. No, you're not. You are totally invading, crossing, slaughtering, raping these totally innocent countries that are being named terrorist state. The only terrorist state we're talking about is the US. And Israel also, we have Saudi as well. These people, these sort of nations are working together, but it's much bigger than nations, because the New World Order are about global control in all areas. So it's a mistake to look at the US, at France, England as separate entities. They're just like pieces on a chessboard and being played. So it's not by coincidence that these things, Just when the Bilderberg meeting was happening, I mean, there's always a false flag as a diversion to distract our attention away from the Bilderberg meeting. Every single year, so I was sitting waiting, where is it going to be, where is it going to be? Boom, it happened in Orlando. And this is by design. They do it again, and it's they. So all of these false flag attacks that has happened this summer, and I mean, my God, the level of crap quality is just stunning. It's staggering. It's so poorly pulled off nowadays, most of them, that some of them happen in the US, some of them happen in Europe. It's totally coordinated. This is the thing. It's and I tell you, I have a theory. This is a theory. I'm not a fan of conspiracy theories. I'm only interested in conspiracy facts. But sometimes there is a place for a theory as well. And by the way, conspiracy theory is a term that was created by the CIA right after the assassination of JFK, so that it could be thrown at anyone who started raising questions. Because as soon as you're talking about conspiracy theory, there's a doubt, and you can be called a tinfoil hat. But we're only talking about facts. But here is a theory that I'm trying to prove. I believe that what we're seeing the last 2-3 years of all of these attacks everywhere is the same game. It's the same, like a rock band on tour, a Rocky Horror Show on tour, on global tour. So it's a small little unit consisting of marketing agency, military coordinators, crisis actors, directors, film crew, bodyguards to control it. You also have the logistics in the form of makeup, you have clothing, you have catering, these things, but in a small little unit that can be totally controlled, because it's very important for them to keep it to as few people as possible for security-wise. They're flown in military planes between army bases, US Army bases or NATO bases, then transported from these airports or bases in buses to location where they're being supported by local backups, carrying out these terror attacks, meaning that it is the same people we're seeing running around in SWAT team uniforms, and victims and people running around screaming in the streets in Sydney, as in Ottawa, as in Paris, as in Copenhagen, as in London, as in Nice, and so on. It's the same, it's even the same script. They're doing the same again and again and again. So I asked Chip, and he's been involved in false flags in his career. He said he said it's not only possible, it's plausible. And he totally believed that is what's going on as well.
You know, how interesting, and I want to explore this a little further, but I want to read something to you which is very timely because it was just published yesterday as we're having this conversation. And one thing I should say is that, guys, if you're not familiar with Operation Gladio, just dig in. You know, what Ole is talking about here is a playbook they've been using for decades. And I think that Operation Gladio is still alive and well. James Corbett and Sibel Edmonds have really done the research there to vet that out, Ole. But, you know, you mentioned the fact that these could be the same actors, the same group, the same hit teams, the same script rolled out time and time again. And let's talk about that in a second, because a lot of these actors, a lot of these people, the victims, the people providing testimony, firsthand testimony to the CIA, Mockingbird media, appear to be the same people. Many of them, time and time again. I don't know if you want to get into that, but let me just read this because it really sums up everything we're talking about. This comes from our friends at Rutherford Institute. This was written by John Whitehead just on the 24th, and the title of it is The Path to Total Dictatorship, America's Shadow Government and Its Silent Coup. Could that be more timely for this conversation? Let me read this to you, Ole. And he starts with a quote from, I won't even tell you who. Let me just read the quote first, then I'll reveal who and when. He says, "Today the path to total dictatorship in the U.S. can be led by strictly legal means, unseen and unheard by Congress, the President, or the people. Outwardly, we have a constitutional government. We have operating within our government and political system a well-organized political action group in this country determined to destroy our Constitution and establish a one-party state. The important point to remember about this group is not its ideology, but its organization. It operates secretly, silently, continuously to transform our government. This group is answerable neither to the President,
No.
the Congress, nor the courts. It is practically irremovable. And that was said by Senator William Jenner in 1954, Ollie. And John Whitehead weighs in by saying, unaffected by elections, unaltered by populist movements, beyond the reach of the law. Say hello to America's shadow government. I just wanted to read that because it couldn't be more timely, and it is exactly what we're up against. So please feel free to dive into that or circle back to these actors and these false flags.
No, like this was 54. This is the year when the Bilderberg Group was created. This is the year when the strategy of tension was created as well, which is behind the whole Gladio movement. I mean, it's been going on for such a long time, and this is also why has things just gone worse? It's gone from horrible to worse, and it's because of this. It is the same plan in action, and they've just hammered along. And the only reason why they've been able to get away with it is because they've done it behind the curtains. They're in the dark. This is why my website is Light on Conspiracy. I try to aim the light, totally fearless, totally non-violent, but aiming the light of truth into the darkest of the darkest corner, in the belly of the beast, and expose it, because these, I don't know what to call them, but they are like cockroaches. You switch on the light, they cannot stay in the light. They disappear. And it's with all type of criminality. I've just spoken to a police officer that used to chase down the mafia in Sweden, and he said it's only in the dark that criminality, any type of criminality, can continue. You aim the light at them, as soon as they're visible, as soon as they know that they're being watched, they can't work, they can't do anything. So this is the thing. Switch on the light, aim it at them and say enough. Because, and also become aware of it, because my God, please, this was 1954 and it's been going on for far longer than that. And still people are in the process of just waking up, being shocked. Oh my God, what is going on? Well, it's been going on right under your nose the whole time.
Yeah, it absolutely has. No, go ahead.
This is why it's a very painful wake-up thing for many people, because they just can't believe it. Can it be that big? And the answer is, yep. At the same time, the core group, the core element, these rogue elements that they say don't answer to government or anything because they control the government, that's why. These rogue elements are only there in the thousands. We are in the billions. So it's an absolute joke. If you make a mathematical, comparison, there's no comparison at all. It's like a sand grain on a football plane. It's a joke that we're in this situation.
I agree, but you know what's scary about it? And I'll say a couple of things here, Ole. What's scary about it is the fact that they operate in the shadows. They are not beholden to the law, as was just read in that quote. They're not beholden to the light of truth, and they operate in the shadows. And it's very difficult to, for example, defend yourself on an open public street from a sniper. If you don't know he's there and you don't know where he is, how do you defeat that sniper? And that's the way these people behave. And the thing that really is terrifying is that now, because of the DNC leaks, the Podesta emails, WikiLeaks, the work of Snowden, the work of Project Veritas, we can now see truth spilling out about how evil and how far-reaching this conspiracy is, and that it absolutely involves the collusion of the mainstream Mockingbird corporate media. If there's good news in this country, Ali, it's the fact that people are waking up to the fact that the mainstream corporate media is completely corrupt. And I remember after 9/11, so many people would say, it didn't matter if I told them about World Trade Center 7 or BBC reporting about the demise of that building 25 minutes early, which is 100% impossible. And it didn't matter, because they'd say, if what you're saying is true, certainly there would be young, hungry investigative reporters at CNN or Fox News that would break that story wide open. It would be the biggest story in human history. And the fact is, they can't. they're controlled, and if they're not controlled, they're literally in on it. Podesta holding parties for these people, the DNC holding parties for insiders in the mainstream media. And I think what kills me about it is that these people still control the narrative through their mainstream Mockingbird media. I've heard often said about 9/11 by the mainstream media that conspiracy theorists come up with these elaborate explanations for these events because the truth is the world is very uncontrollable and bad things happen, and it helps people cope by coming up with these elaborate conspiracies, when the truth is exactly the opposite. If the official story about 9/11 were true, I could sleep at night a whole lot better than what you and I have discovered and other researchers, which is there is this monolithic, completely evil, satanic, far-reaching spiderweb of evil behind the scenes that involve intelligence agencies and corporations and nation states working against the interests of the people. And what happened on 9/11 is very clearly a false flag. And what needs to be said, and what I want people to understand who are listening to this, is if these people were capable of pulling off 9/11, they're literally capable of anything. Because they knew people were going to die in those buildings when those buildings were brought down, Ollie. That's how evil these people are.
No, the thing is, they needed them to die. It's called collateral damage. The more, the better, because this was only done as a problem reaction solution, the old Roman tactic. They secretly create a problem to get the emotional reaction from us, to the impact of emotional like that, so that we will be so fearful and turn towards them who are in, sorry about that, in leader position, saying, please, please protect us, we need protection. And then they will say, well, the only way we can protect you is, and boom, here comes the solution. So here we were talking about, one of the major things with 9/11 was to get the war on terror. The war on terror. What does that mean? It means absolutely nothing. Who's the enemy? Where are you gonna, the war on terror? What would be the next one? The war on scary stuff? It's not a war. It's a total creation of the mind that makes them be able to carry this on forever and ever and ever. As long as they point at some boogeyman they've created themselves and say, well, the enemy is over there, the enemy is over there. And with 9/11, this was such a massive step forward. They were planning, I think 7 countries in five years was the plan, as far as I know. And so they needed us to accept this, because they can't do these things without our acceptance. That's the whole thing. If we say no, this stops. So they needed this massive impact, and this was the reason why they needed these thousands of victims, so that it would be so outrageous. That's also why they picked the symbols of the US, the Twin Towers, the thing, whoa, that was untouchable, and boom, that's where they hit it. They always do that right in the heart of whatever nation it is they're trying to hit. They go for these symbols and to get the emotions going. So, but I tell you, I hear what you're saying, and I think I know more about these things than most people. So I should be the first one to swing from the ceiling in a rope, becoming totally depressed and paranoid. I am super optimistic, I tell you. I am super optimistic, because the thing is, the whole thing is falling apart for them. Their plan, I believe, was to have got us into a very dark corner and total control by the year 2012. Totally screwed up. It did not matter. They could not manage. And since then, they've been trying and trying and trying. And people like myself have gone out to the masses and got so many thousands of people awake that are pointing the light at them. As soon as they try to do anything, we mess it up for them. I know personally I've stopped at least 2 planned false flag massacres just because I know how they operate. So as soon as the signs are there, boom, expose it, expose it, expose it. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, from Chip also, he says that their timeline is so tight and so many things are depending on that these operations are carried out, the way they successfully Because if we screw it up, it can mess this timeline up for months and months and months. And so if for instance, we stop something in Brussels, that can affect things in the Ukraine and in the US and many other places like that, because it is so entangled in each other. And the people, when you look at it, really the Wizard of Oz, it's the perfect symbolic picture of the whole thing, where there's this monster living in this castle that is saying to control everything. But once you get there in and Fearless just approached it, just like Dorothy, she saw this cable going in on the curtain. She pulled the curtain, and what was behind it? Was it a massive big monster? No, it was a tiny little old guy, total coward, who was sitting with a massive big amplifier, big loudspeakers, and a microphone. Switch off the electricity, take the microphone away from him. He's nothing. And these old guys, I mean, look at them. They're pathetic. They look, I mean, we say, oh, they're powerful. Oh, Jacob Rothschild, oh, he's powerful. Look at him. They have no power whatsoever except what we give to them and through the money and all of these things. But really, their only talents is that they're thieves, murderers, that they're what do you call it? They can betray, that they can manipulate, that they can lie, that they can deceive. These are the talents they have, and at the same time smile when they kill. But they don't do the killing. They just sign the papers and let other people do it. So these people we're up against are super cowards, super cowards. So really, this should be very simple. So I'm not scared at all, even though I know I'm targeted as many people who are stepping up against them. But so be it. I'll be happy if something happens. I accept that. But I don't think it will, because I just feel that this is falling apart. And if I can only say, I have this, I have this image of the Hoover Dam, where you got all of these millions of tons of water being blocked, because we have been blocked by these forces for so many years that people don't know what it is to be alive and free and liberated and debt free. We have no idea. We haven't even experienced it, many of us, because it's been blocked by them. So you got all these millions of tons of water behind this concrete wall. The only thing you need is a small crack in it, small crack. Once that crack goes through, the power of the water that has been held back will just power through and totally wipe out the wall in seconds. So once it starts moving, it will go very, very fast. And this is why I've focused on top political assassinations, since this is what they do to us, and false flag operations. These are some of the main tools against us to keep us in fear mode and get rid of people, beautiful people that stand up, like JFK, Martin Luther King, fantastic individuals. They wipe them out through these assassinations and so on. So what I've done is try to be like a laser beam on the same spot again and again and again and again and again and again to crack through this wall and do my part in the whole thing. And I tell you, this wall is coming down soon, and it's going to be fantastic.
Well, I just love your optimism, and I agree. Now, we both in this interview have made that symbolic metaphor of the dam and the holes in the dam, because I'm seeing it happen too. Again, WikiLeaks, Project Veritas, Edward Snowden, they can't stop it. The dam has so many holes in it at this point, Ollie, that Anderson Cooper is going to need about 75 more hands to plug up all these holes. And CNN does a terrific job lying to the people. Guys, when I brought up 9/11 previously and we talked about that, if you're curious to learn more about who did 9/11 and why they did it, Google that article at SGT Report. It's called Treason, Who Did 9/11 and Why Did They Do It? That comes from the millenniumreport.com. It is a very detailed document that also points the finger at the Bush cartel and other families and agencies and corporations involved in the 9/11 false flag event. I think that you've been doing research into the Martin Luther King assassination. Is that anything you want to talk about now, or is that so big that we should bring you back for another show to talk about that?
if you want to, I normally do 2 hour shows about it, but I think I made some major steps forward based on the work of William Pepper, who's the lawyer of James Earl Ray, the acclaimed assassin, or accused assassin, because what most people are not aware of is that there was a court case in 1999, just before the millennium, where he was totally freed from any accusation. It was the King family who brought this trial up, and where the sentence was put forward that this was a state-sponsored assassination with the FBI, with military intelligence, some with the Memphis police, and some parts of the CIA involved in this whole thing, and where some of the key players in setting up the whole assassination, in my humble opinion, was Jesse Jackson and another a referent called Samuel Billy Kyles, who is both of these two people were there to help get Martin Luther King in position at the Lorraine Motel at the exact time and so on, where this assassination is much, much bigger than people normally know about. There were several sniper teams, there was multiple shooters, the whole setup was there, just like in many of these other assassinations. So if you want to, I'll be happy. Anytime you want me back, we can go through so many different cases. I devoted my life to this thing, so I mean, use what it's in here. It doesn't do any good as long if it's only here. Let's get it out there.
Okay, well, I would really appreciate that. Let's do that. I mean, as many of the listeners know, Jesse Jackson is a 33rd degree Freemason, I believe. And of course, he was allowed to run for president. He was the front-facing mouthpiece for African Americans for decades, hoisted upon us, again, by the corporate mainstream media. So it would make sense that he also was a made man, just like Hillary Clinton, just like Jeb Bush. You know, it was my opinion this year that that's what we were going to get, Ole, was a Jeb Bush versus Hillary Clinton ticket, which is a shit sandwich. You have a choice to eat it. So you have democracy. You can choose to eat the shit sandwich or not. It's up to you. But that's what they wanted to give us. And I think that the powers that be are quite upset that it's not a Ted Cruz, Jeb Bush versus Hillary ticket, because ultimately they want Hillary in the office of president so these crimes can continue unabated in perpetuity.
What I've been informed for about a year or so is that the plan was, let's see if it goes through, I hope not, but I don't know what I'm hoping for, because whatever happens, it's going to be like horrible. Was that the idea was to create so many false flag operations, terror and absolute fear-mongering actions everywhere, so that martial law was being called for. And martial law would come in, then the Constitution would be put out of place, and Obama would be forced to come in for a third term. That was the plan as far as I know. I've been informed by insiders. But I don't know what's going to happen now, because now with Hillary, there's all of these things about that she died on 9/11. She's clearly, there's more than one Hillary. I've just been part of releasing a book called what do you call it? Published by Moon Rock Books, together with Jim Fetzer and many very, very highly respected researchers, PhDs and so on. We have put together a long series of books that are going through everything from JFK to 9/11 to Sandy Hook to Boston. These books have already been released, not the JFK one. And the latest one is about from Orlando to Dallas. And in that one chapter, or there's several chapters about Hillary, and also her using a double at the moment. I mean, they don't even look alike. One is 10 years younger, she doesn't weigh as much. Hillary herself is really like lots of wrinkles and so on. The other ones, there's at least 2 or 3 of them. And also this whole thing, there's all of these theories, I would say, about her being a clone, where you see the eye starts going all over and that she overheats. And I don't know if these things are real, if there is such a thing as clone. I have no idea. But there's also in the book a lot of, there's some very high up doctors that have been going through her behavior, her medical, what do you call it?
history.
They
And
check.
yeah.
Yeah, and also they done a lot of checks on her voice schemes and stuff like that, which is one of the ways to determine what kind of disease is going on and so on. And they say that she's dying, but I would say it would be very likely that she is about to be exposed big time. So she is playing the part of dying to get out. You know, this is what they often do. Just when they're about to be exposed, they suddenly die, or you know, so they get out the back door, get a plastic surgery, live their life in luxury. It's standard procedure when with many people in power positions or assassins or agents and so on that needs to be exposed or disposed of and so on. So many people that officially dies don't die. You know, I know Chip Tatum, he has been flying a lot of dead people, you know, from the States to Canada and so on for plastic surgery, people that officially are dead, but they've been passengers in his plane and so on. So it's just we're being played. It's a theater. We're being played. This whole thing is rigged, and we need to see what's going on and just not buy into it anymore. And by waking up, take the power back in a non-violent way. Very, very important not to go and lynch these people or kill them or whatever, because violence is their language and they're just longing for us. They're poking us to get going, you know, with provocateurs and so on, to get riots going so that they can use all the force to just squash us. So we need to transcend this in a whole different way. And my opinion, and in my heart, I strongly feel it's the Mahatma Gandhi way. It's Martin Luther King. These were the people that showed that it is possible to do these type of changes in a non-violent way. So I totally devote my life to that way as well.
Yeah. Well, my hat's off to you, Ole. You're an absolute inspiration. And I just so appreciate the work you do and your voice and your tireless efforts to get the truth out. Because, you know, doing these interviews, guys, these are done in real time. And this man does, you know, 2-3 hour interviews repeatedly, often trying to get the truth out. That's very exhausting. And I know it's what makes you tick, Ole. It's what makes you special, too, because you really are tireless. Guys, I would just sum this up by saying the rabbit hole runs deep. So sometimes we get into the woo-woo when we talk about clones and, you know, doubles of Hillary. But if you take a look at her fainting episode when she was hauled into the Scooby van on 9/11, later in that day, the woman who came out had no Secret Service protection. And to back up what Ole was saying, Dr. Ted Noel has done countless YouTube videos about his belief that Hillary has Parkinson's, which is terminal. Hillary's not healthy mentally, physically, or spiritually, and she represents the very same powers that have enslaved this planet and really the evil behind the scenes. I'll tell you what, I think this has been a very gripping conversation, Ole, and is there anything we can do to support you? Tell people about the books. Your books look very special. I've not read them, but I should buy some, and I think the audience should as well.
I tell you, I'm a one-man band. I'm not being paid for anything. I don't get paid for interviews. I've done hundreds and hundreds. I don't get paid normally at conferences. I get the plane ticket, accommodation, maybe $100. That's about it. I've got a family to feed. So anyone who wants to support me would be, the help for me is sign up for my newsletter, my membership area on my website. There's hundreds and hundreds of interviews and other stuff in there. Also, donations is extremely appreciated. I'm on my way now. I'm going to Belgium on Sunday to do a 6-hour presentation about the assassination of Olof Palme, the Swedish Prime Minister, which is totally connected to the Bush family again and again. Then I'm going to Holland to do some filming. Then I'm coming back, and then I'm on my way to Dallas on the 14th. I'm going to be in Dallas. I'm one of the key speakers there. I'm the main speaker the Saturday evening on the 18th, I think, of November. And I feel extremely honored. I've been asked to represent the people of Europe and give a small little speech on Dealey Plaza at the time when he was killed on the 22nd, and when there's going to be afterwards a silent minute. So it's going to be absolutely, for me, amazing. At the same time, I know I'm a boil in the butt for these forces, and it's not. I don't feel comfortable going there because people behind these things would very much like the truth not to come out there. So I'm sure they'd have a tailor-made orange suit ready for me if something should go back. I just want to say that now, that but I'm going anyway, and everything's, I'm sure, is going to be super duper. But I have a family, and for me to keep my family fed and so on, all it's financial. That is the thing that I'm missing. So anyone that will help is extremely appreciated. At the same time, also what I'm doing is I'm going on many of these locations where these false flag operations have been carried out especially in Europe. There's so many of them. The Nice, the Brussels, the Charlie Hebdo, the Copenhagen shooting, the 7/7 bombings, the Madrid bombings, the Queen Day massacre in Holland. There's so many of them. And what I do is, as soon as I can, when these things happen, I try to get on location while the operations are still there and expose it while it is still ongoing, because the truth will do the trick, but it needs to get out there. And so one of the things I do is I have like a photographer with me, and we go on location. We try to sneak in. It's scary like hell, I tell you. And we try to, on location, do undercover footage, and then afterwards put it together in a series of the documentaries where there would be a presentation of the official story and then the real facts. And when you put them next to each other, it's so obvious, I tell you. I don't have to convince anyone. I just put it in front of people and they're like, what the hell is this? So it's very powerful. And at the moment, I'm being approached by a production company in the US who's very interested in supporting me in making this series of documentaries, if we can find an outlet through Netflix or whatever. But who knows? I mean, this will be something totally new in the mainstream, because this type of information has not been out there. It's only in alternative media. But I think we need to focus on this black box, because that is the way to reach all the rest of humanity that don't go and look for themselves, but totally believe what is being pumped out through this sewage hole that is called a black box in front of you. So I'm very devoted to find that way and get that information out there. So.
Well, I tell you what, you are doing God's work, and on behalf of all of us, I want to thank you. And I also want to say, some of my listeners are the most generous people, I have to tell you. We had Richard Sauter on, and we talked about underground bases in his books, and he's living off grid, and I think people think anytime you write a book you become a millionaire. That is certainly no longer the case. And in the case of Richard Sauter, people really reached out and helped support him, and he sent me a couple emails thanking us for the support. Honestly, we have some of the most generous people listen to this show and visit SGT Report. So guys, you know who you are. You know I love you. You know how much I appreciate you. I really say there's about 30 of you specifically that move heaven and earth every single time we have a guest on. So let's please donate some money on Ole's site, which is lightonconspiracies.com. And by all means, buy the books. Is the best way to buy the books to go to Amazon, or can you make more money if we come directly through you, Ole?
No, it's only through Amazon. This book I tried for, like you say, write a book, become a millionaire. This book it's built on 30 years of research. I mean, this is, and it's not part one and part two. It's the same book. It's just that it would be like a brick to read it if. So that's why I divided. And I tried to get it published in many different ways. Never managed. And then in the end, it was almost hijacked by somebody who turned out to be CIA, and I even got a death threat, really spooky. So I decided, shit, I'm going to do it myself. This information should get out there one way or the other. So I published these books myself. So the only way you can get them is through Amazon.
Okay. Well,
it's called Coup d'etat in Slow Motion. There's another one called Shadow of Tears. It's about In 1984, I took an old bicycle and I was heading from Sweden to South Africa. That was sort of the plan. I don't know what kind of weird plan that was, but somewhere down through Europe, I must have taken a wrong turn because I ended up in the middle of the war, Iran-Iraq war, and in that war where I thought I was in a country of absolute mad people running around screaming Allah Akbar, shooting each other, I met the most beautiful, generous, fantastic people, but in an extremely difficult situation. And it ended up with one of them getting murdered, and I just risked everything and helped to smuggle out first one through, we went out from Iran up to former Soviet Union, then into East Germany up through Berlin and to Sweden, where he later got asylum. And then we got 7 more out, 2 to Canada and the rest to Sweden. So that book it's the exactly what happened, lots of photos. It's called Shadow of Tears. And then there's another one called Remind Me. It's re-mind me, because it's how to reprogram your mind on how to deal with life, how to deal with difficult situation, how to be in balance even though you're under threat, or if you're, to how to let go of fear, live a life in love and compassion, forgiveness. And so it's a small little, like a 1 hour read, but it's based on I would say the rules of the universe, this matrix we're living in. And Shirley MacLaine loved it, by the way. Suddenly one day I got a signed photo from her out of the blue saying, just please keep on writing. So there you go.
Oh, that's terrific.
And then I have a small little kids book called Yolanda Yoga Panda, because I'm a Raja Yoga teacher also. That's Raja Yoga, the science of the mind. Once again, how to live a beautiful, easeful, peaceful, useful life. But this is for kids, so it's called Yolanda Yoga Panda. Truth is one, paths are many.
Well, you leave me speechless, because certainly you've lived a life that is honorable and, again, inspirational. And I think it's fantastic. And again, guys, a lot of folks in the truth community, because they've dedicated their lives to truth and to opposing these evil forces that have all the money and printed out of thin air, are struggling to the degree that they don't have the $150,000 corporate job and they haven't sold out. So if you want to support Ole, that can be the way that you do your part in helping the truth get out. And I thank you in advance for anything you do. I mean, my God, Ole, I'm sure we're going to get 20,000 plus listening to this interview. If everybody donated $5, it would really make an impact.
I mean, I wouldn't even know what that kind of money looked like. It's
And Ole, let me ask you one other question before we let you go, because I like to donate to people via PayPal. It's just very easy. Do you have a PayPal account that you want to make public?
for sure. It's info@lightonconspiracies.com. That's plural, conspiracies.com, because there's more than one going on. info@lightonconspiracies.com. I just say I am extremely grateful, and whatever money comes in, I will do my absolute utmost to spend it in a way that will make a massive difference for us all. Everything. And also I want to say, anywhere I'm needed, anywhere I can make the change for something better, count me in whatever circumstances, frontline, wherever, count me in. If you can just make it possible for me to get there financially, I'll, prisons, Hell's Angels, whoever, if they're there, because these people, I thought that was really funny. I was contacted a while ago by a member of the Hell's Angels saying that they look at my lectures about the false flag operations. And I said, what? And they said, yeah, because we're the patsies being used, or being, as the one being accused of many of the things that are carried out by these forces, but they blame it on Hell's Angels. I thought, whoa, I had no idea. So wherever, count me in.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm having a hard time saying goodbye, because you're such a kindred spirit and you're obviously such a good person. And we'll do this again. Can we? Can you come on again sometime in the future?
Sean, anytime. Like I say, anytime. You want to do 10 shows, we'll do 10 shows. It's like, count me in. I'm here to make a difference. Use me.
Okay, and do this for me just one last time here. Will you spell your last name so as people search on Amazon, we can find your books?
It's Dammegard. Dammegard.
Okay, and Ole, O-L-E.
Dammegard.
Okay. Well, guys, the website is lightonconspiracies.com, and our guest has been Ole Dammegard. Of course, I was saying it the wrong way.
No, you didn't. It sounded pretty good to me.
Did I do okay? Okay. All right. Well, it's just my greatest pleasure to finally meet you in person, and I want to thank you for your time so very much, Ole.
Oh, my absolute pleasure, Sean. And I'm always here. You know, anything you want, just call me. If I got the time, let's do it right there.
All right. Well, God bless you. And guys, thank you so much. If you've listened to this entire interview and you've reached this point in it, please hit like and please share it with everyone you know. It's the most important thing. It's the way to make Ole's work worthwhile, to make his time worthwhile, to get this interview out. We got to wake people up. I mean, that's all we have to do is shine the light of truth on these cockroaches, and we stand a chance. Thanks for your support at sgtreport.com, thelibertymill.com, and thephaser.com. Real news brought to you by me and my team every single day, 24/7. Have a wonderful week ahead.
Sean, can I finish with a prayer before you go?
Oh, by all means, please.
It's not that I'm a religious person, but I am a spiritual being. And this is a prayer that my Raja Yoga teacher, Nelani Chalaram, uses, and I absolutely love it. It goes like this. May the entire universe be filled with peace and joy, love and light. May everyone, and especially the ones who hurt us, be filled with peace and joy, love and light. Victory to that light. The thing is, we all need to heal, you know. If they don't heal, the so-called bad guys, I mean, this will just continue. We need to heal it together, you know, heal it, and then we can have a massive dance party and a cold beer and just celebrate life.
Amen. Okay.
Amen to that.
Amen, brother. All right. Well, I love you, man. I love what you're doing. Thank you so much. And guys, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your support at sgtreport.com. If you liked this interview, if it meant something to you, if you appreciate Ole's time, please like it and share it with others. And may God bless you. Bye-bye.
This is a battle for the planet, and this brood of vipers, if you will, has set up its nest within the bowels of the so-called United States government and the so-called United States military and the associated alphabet soup agencies.